it does raise some interesting questions about specifically in teaching or in promoting or mentorship. It's extremely hard. What I liked about it because it took it out of the realm of heterosexuality and just made it pure about that. Am I being too subversive in saying something erotic is kind of in that inevitably? It requires controlling and shutting down at certain points, but the subtlety with which the movie showed this woman, this brilliant woman's capacity to control others in a way and destroy others was really chilling.
Yes. And I think you're right to point out the sort of erotic component of it, right? Because, it is it's a movie about people playing roles, right? And so there's this just the dynamic between the main character and her wife is fascinating in that it takes this turn sort of, 3/4 of the way through the movie. Initially we've been presented with this scenario where her wife is kind of fragile and, in need of reassurance. She's the first violin in the orchestra that Lydia conducts. And then once, Lydia's misdeeds kind of go public, including through this, sort of doctor video of her taking down a student at sort of a Juilliard.
So basically how I understood, because there's a conversation between her and her wife. Mm-hmm. I mean, the key fact is that this woman promotes, rears, and then dispenses with beautiful young women who are part of her ensemble, presumably when they get a little too close or when they might outshine her. We don't quite know why she drops
a little too much.
Yes, well, they get a little too, and then she cuts them off really badly. And she does it in one respect. This poor woman kills herself. Yes. She's so destroyed. The wife was one of those mentees. So she was part of the process. And she has a conversation with Lydia towards the end saying, we sat down together and you plotted how you were going to get to the top and how we were going to do all this. And she has obviously observed girl after girl after girl, woman after woman after woman. They're quite young. So she knows full well what her wife is up to.
But there's this switch in the dynamic where she's just like, this is not what we agreed to. And
what they didn't agree to was her doing stuff without her approval in advance.
Well, I think what they didn't agree to was her slipping up, getting sloppy, right? Like ruining it for both of them. And to me, the real shift in the power dynamic comes, and you see hints of it, right? In the first scene where you meet her wife, Lydia's like getting her this anti-anxiety medication and sort of calming her down. And then it becomes clear throughout the course of the movie that like she's stealing her wife's anti-anxiety medication, that she is fragile in certain ways. And, this character has this enormous need to exert control. And her wife takes her child away from her, right? Like she just cuts her off, completely steely about it, denies her access to their child, denies her that sort of dominance. And it raises this fascinating question about the extent to which the whole dynamic of their relationship has been role play, right? And it's a movie that is so much about sort of performance, right? Like there's this incredible scene where Lydia learns that her daughter's been bullied at school, and she goes and tracks down this girl and introduces herself as her daughter's father, which I think is so, and again, like seeing this sort of butch femme dynamic on screen, it was something that's, lesbians are so rarely portrayed in film, period. But then to have that specific dynamic on screen, I thought was so interesting. But then she's
subtler than just butch femme, I think.
Yeah.
And I think in that particular, they're both quite femme, actually.
Although, Lydia's wearing these, bespoke suits. And they dress her in a lot of tweeds. But she even in, you don't see her wearing dresses outside of work, right? She's wearing tweeds and these just immaculately tailored suits. Like she's, you see the sort of the paper suit forms and everything. But yeah, it raises these questions about the extent to which everything is if you're someone for whom everything is sort of performance, everything is this act of supreme control, what happens when you try to impose that on people who are messier and more human? What happens when people sort of think they're consenting to the game and then maybe don't have the ability to see it all the way through, right?
Or just the cost,
yes,
personally, of seeking power.
Yeah.
Constantly seeking power and fame, which requires a little compromise here, a little compromise there, another compromise there, until it becomes the only thing you care about. And you see this, God, we live in a city where it's full of it. And her wife says at one point, every single relationship you've ever had is transactional,
yes,
including her wife.
Yes.
Except her daughter.
Yes.
And that, of course, she's taken, that's in the end, the daughter is taken away from her. It's not clear that the wife does that. Someone else comes in and takes the kid away from school.
No, I thought that's her wife.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was a third person, but anyway, maybe I didn't see that.
Yeah.
But in the end, she's miserable. She is terribly lost, and you sort of want vindication for her. You kind of want some. Well, either you want justice, right? You want to see this person, and she is brought down, although there's no legal consequences as far as I can tell, unless she leaves the country and goes somewhere completely obscure, where she goes back to just doing music, however badly or in whatever excruciating a context.
Yeah, but so it's not clear to me that anything should happen to her legally, right? I mean, her behavior seems immoral not in the sense that what she's doing is like clearly defined sexual harassment, but that it's cruel, right? I mean, she is dishonest with people. She strings along her assistant with this sort of promise that she's going to get an important role in the orchestra and then, doesn't do it. She cheats on her wife. She's an immoral person.
At the same time, she clearly devotes herself to these mentees.
Yes.
But this is the other part of it, that it's complicated.
Yes.
But yes, these women would never have these opportunities without her. She finds real talent. The other fascinating part of the movie is you sort of expect she's going to pick a dud because she's hot. Yeah. When she's picking a blind audition, she figures out who it is, and she's just attracted to her. So she thinks she's going to put. And in any normal movie, there'd be a point where you'd realize, oh God, that person can't do it, but no, she can do it.
Yes,
in fact,
this cellist she settled on is genius. Yes,
that cellist also is of the generation to be manipulating her.
Yes, and that's part of an interesting question about the movie is whether her assistant and the cellist are running a long con on her.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are a number of scenes in the movie where Lydia is being filmed by someone.
Yeah.
Or someone is texting someone else about her and we don't see who it is. It's never quite revealed. And, we know that both her assistant and the cellist she's mentoring sort of lie to her at various points. And so it's a tremendously uneasy movie.
It is.
And I so appreciate that about it, right? Because look, it's so important for the Harvey Weinsteins and the Bill Cosbys of the world to face legal accountability. But the sort of moral reckonings for conduct that's not illegal, that shouldn't be illegal, but that is not moral and that is in some cases multidimensionally not moral. We are such a long way from sorting all of that out. And it was a shame to me that Tar got presented as like the cancel culture movie, right? Because it's so much more than that.
It is.
And
I love the fact that it didn't condescend to me, that it kept me, it's slow. I mean, it takes a long time for you to understand what's going on. And it's quiet. And what you feel in ways that I think are very hard to do is the allure, the slow tentacles of power and the attractions of power that corrupt you from inside, even though you're doing good at the same time. So as a sophisticated movie, I'm just so grateful for it.